I'm Donna, 67. Sitting in my office, looking at the resignation letter from Ava on my desk, I can't help but reflect on the series of events that led to this moment. It all started at my grandson Leo's birthday dinner, a night that would change so many lives. I remember ringing the doorbell at my son Ethan's house. Usually, Ethan would greet me with that warm smile I cherished from his childhood. But this time, it was Ava who opened the door. Her perfectly manicured hand grasped the handle tightly, as if she owned the place. "Oh, you're here," she said, her voice dripping with a tone that made me feel like an unwelcome guest in my own son's home. I held onto the small gift bag in my hands, inside which was a hand-knitted scarf I'd spent weeks making for Leo. "Hello, Ava. I brought something for Leo's birthday," I said. She didn't move aside to let me in. Instead, she looked me up and down, taking in my simple blue dress, the nicest one I owned, but clearly not up to her standards. "Ethan is still getting ready. The other guests are already here," she informed me. I was taken aback. Ethan had only called last week, his voice strained as it always was when Ava was around, and invited me for a small family dinner. When I finally got inside, the living room was filled with well-dressed couples. Their jewelry sparkled under the crystal chandelier, and they spoke in hushed, important tones. I recognized a few faces from the local business magazines. Leo's voice cut through the chatter like a ray of sunshine. "Grandma Donna," he ran towards me, his little arms outstretched. For a moment, everything felt right. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I whispered as I hugged him. "I made you something special." But before I could give him the gift, Ava's hand was on his shoulder, pulling him away. "Leo, remember what we talked about? Grandma needs to wash her hands first. Go play with your cousins." Dinner was a nightmare. The dining room table was long, set with china I'd never seen before, probably wedding gifts from Ava's wealthy family. I was seated at the far end, squeezed between an empty chair and Ethan's business partner, who talked loudly about his latest real estate deal throughout the meal. Ethan caught my eye once during the appetizer, but when Ava whispered something in his ear, he looked away. During the main course, Ava's voice rang out. "Donna, Ethan tells me you're still working at that little cleaning business." The way she said little made it sound so distasteful. Several guests turned to look at me, their expressions a mix of pity and curiosity. I felt my face flush. "I own a business," I replied quietly. Ava laughed. "Oh, how sweet. A business. Donna does office cleaning. Very humble work." I could feel the guests subtly distancing themselves from me. It was during dessert that things completely fell apart. Leo had escaped from the children's table and climbed onto my lap. "Grandma, tell me the story about the brave knight," he said. It was our tradition, a story I'd made up years ago. But before I could begin, Ava stood up, her face red with anger. "Leo, get down from there right now. You'll get your clothes dirty." Leo whimpered, "But Mom, I want to hear Grandma's story." Ava lifted Leo from my lap roughly and then turned to me. "I think it's time for you to leave." She called out for security, even though there was none. "Could you please escort this woman out? She's disturbing our family dinner." Ethan stood up slowly, his face pale. "Ava, that's my mother." Ava sneered. "Your mother doesn't belong at a table with decent people. Look at her, Ethan. She's embarrassing you, us, and our son." I don't remember leaving the house. I only remember the sound of my heart pounding in my ears and the cold night air hitting my face as I stepped outside. As I drove home, I made a decision. Ava didn't know that I was the founder and CEO of Summit Innovations, the company where she worked as a marketing manager. The next morning, I arrived at the office 2 hours earlier than usual. I pulled up Ava's employee file. To my disgust, I found 3 formal complaints filed against her in the past year, all from older employees. There was Linda, 62, from finance, who complained that Ava had publicly humiliated her during a budget meeting, calling her methods outdated. Then there was Carl, 59, from IT, who reported that Ava had made him work overtime on her personal projects while berating him for being slow. And finally, there was Grace, 64, a custodial supervisor, who was transferred to the night shift after Ava complained that she couldn't accommodate a last-minute schedule change. I decided to transfer Ava to the food services department, washing dishes. I wanted her to experience what it was like to be looked down upon, just as she'd treated others. For 3 days, I watched her through the kitchen service window. She was miserable, her designer nails chipped, and her face full of rage. She muttered to her co-worker, "This is ridiculous. I have an MBA. I was managing high-profile campaigns. Now they have me washing dishes." On the 4th day, I got closer. I pretended to be a maintenance worker and mopped the floor around her station. I heard her complaining to a young man named Ryan. "These people are here because they have no skills. That lady over there, Grace, probably never finished high school." I was appalled. Even in this situation, she hadn't learned a thing. Ava's husband, Ethan, called me several times, making excuses for her. "Mom, she's stressed about work. She wants to apologize." But I knew it was just because she needed an ally, not because she felt remorse. Finally, I arranged a meeting with Ava in my office. When she saw me, her expression changed from confusion to shock to horror. "You? What are you doing here?" she stammered. "I'm the CEO and founder of Summit Innovations, and I've been for 34 years, I said calmly. I presented her with 2 options: continue working in the kitchen and learn empathy, or resign with a neutral reference. But she chose to be defiant. "This is blackmail. You're using your position to force me out," she shouted. I told her that her actions had consequences and that she needed to take responsibility. 3 weeks later, Ethan called and said we needed to talk. He, Ava, and I met at my apartment. Ava tried to paint herself as the victim, saying I'd used my position to humiliate her. But I laid out the truth about her bullying behavior at work and at the birthday dinner. Ethan was shocked. He finally saw Ava for who she really was. He stood up and told Ava to leave. "You've been humiliating my mother and bullying your colleagues. I can't stand by anymore." Ava left in a rage, threatening to ruin our relationship. But I knew that the truth had finally come out. 6 months later, here I am, looking at Ava's resignation letter. Some people learn from their mistakes, while others run from accountability. The company has changed for the better. Linda is back on the day shift with a promotion, Carl is leading a new IT project, and Grace has been promoted to a floor supervisor. My relationship with Ethan and Leo has healed. Leo still asks about me every day, and I've reclaimed my place in my family. I've also started a scholarship program for the children of our long-term employees, like Ryan's mother, who's worked here for 20 years. As I sit here, I know that real power comes from using your position to help others, not to put them down. I've fought for what's right, and I've won, not through revenge, but through the quiet application of consequences. Now, I'm curious about you. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar?
Comment Bilo?